Spiritual hunger is that hunger that permeates all of the others. It is the desire to be fully known in all of our glory and all of our fallibility. It is our desire to be seen for who we are and understood, even if just for a moment. And then we begin seeking it again. We crave this spiritual nourishment. Our emotions often point us to it. Our intellects persistently seek it. And for some reason, we spend most of our lives distracting ourselves with other less desirable pursuits, avoiding this core need of wanting to be seen and understood. The hunger of having deep and meaningful contact with another. I believe that it is our culture that pushes us to ignore it, and that there is deep disappointment and grief of so often not experiencing that which we crave the most. We're expected to hang on to the surface, to pass by one another like we're all on some kind of rapid transit system. And this disappointment affects every aspect of our lives. Understanding it, though, as a persistent cycle can shed some light on all of our other yearnings. Now, this tension of being forced by one's culture to deny the core of our existence, our nature, I call it civilized oppression. It is also at the core of all of the major religious stories. When they ask the fundamental questions like, how do we live out an integrated and authentic life as a spiritual, mental, emotional, physical being? How do we voice what we value the most and honor our nature in the context of our culture? How do we do what needs to be done in order to survive in this world without being completely swept away? Without denying the self and swallowing whole what our culture provides? How do we instead choose to honor our own experience and our own desires? James Linwood Walker writes, "We have become civilized at the awful expense of the denial of essential aspects of human nature. And in the process, we have developed the means whereby we may indeed destroy ourselves. We are becoming more and more the walking dead." And this, my friends, is a spiritual crisis. Mindful eating is an opportunity to live out our desire to be awake in this world, to practice a synthesis of our religious lives and how we ultimately sustain our physical selves. It's saying yes to integration. It's saying yes to wholeness. Eating is an opportunity to wake up in order to demonstrate how you want to take this world in. Do you savor it? Do you chew on it or swallow it whole? Fritz Perls writes, "When adults are very thirsty, they impatiently gulp down fluid without seeing anything wrong with it. But people who gulp down solid food or experience mistake solids for fluids, with the result that they neither develop the ability to properly chew, to work anything through, nor the ability to stand suspense. The destructive tendency of human beings, which should have its natural biological outlet in the use of your teeth, remains ungratified. Hunger for mental and emotional food behaves very much like this physical hunger. Someone who is permanently hungry for affection, for example, he says, but whose need is never satisfied, does not assimilate the affection that is offered to him. He either refuses to accept it or he deprecates it so that it becomes distasteful. Our uses of words are so interesting. So that it becomes distasteful or valueless to him as soon as he has obtained it. Pearls continues, this impatient, greedy attitude is responsible for more than anything else for the excessive stupidity that we find in this world. Just as such people have no patience to chew up real food, so they do not take sufficient time to chew up mental food. To me, this is not about stupidity, but it is about consistency. I want to live my life in a way that reflects my values about the world, even when I'm making food choices. How many of you have gone to dinner, decided in advance that you were just going to have chicken or fish and fresh vegetables, and instead had 3 pieces of bread over the 4th of an appetizer, and what the heck, you've already blown it, so why not have something fried for an entree? And then, way past the feeling of disgusting, someone orders a chocolate decadent fudge overload brownie, and the smell is way too good to refuse, so you just have 1 bite, and then you wake up 6 bites later thinking that it really didn't taste as good as you thought it did. And most likely, all of this happened in 45 minutes or less, and then the cycle begins again. You can eat better tomorrow. Have you been there? Our bodies and our brains are biologically engineered to fight against deprivation. So in effect, our bodies and our brains and our environment are all conspiring or contributing, however you take that, to mindless eating and overconsumption. Dr. Brian Wansink has spent his career studying why we mindlessly eat instead of mindfully eat. Through a series of experiments, he has attempted to unveil the hidden persuaders that change our minds about what, when, and how much we consume. Now, most of these persuaders are all about the context of the food choice and not actually about our hunger or the food itself. How it is described, how it's presented, who we're with at the time, how much we're distracted while we're eating, all of these things play a significant role in upping our consumption, even for really smart people who know better. In his studies, he's found that most people know all of these things, and yet they're triggered to consume more despite their knowledge. Wansink believes that we can create circumstances that conspire to help us make fewer decisions about food. Circumstances that encourage us to slow down and check in with our whole selves, to slow down and taste and enjoy what we're eating. So that when we do have to make food choices about quantity or quality, we can choose mindfully. But what fascinates me the most about this topic is that choice point. That moment when we know what we're doing, but we do it anyway. Any kind of effective change is about being mindful of the choice point, as well as the way in which we're sabotaged by ourselves and the world around us. When we understand that resistance to change is part of the package, we can still choose in a way that makes us feel best in the long run and contribute to live healthy and mindful lives.